Just a day after the Mashujaa celebrations, where he announced that he had mastered the art of climbing the mountain, ODM leader Raila Odinga's brigade Thursday stormed the vote-rich Kiambu County in a vote-hunting mission. The former premier, who was accompanied by a host of other Mount Kenya region leaders, started by inspecting the activities at Gathiroine Coffee Factory in Githongori constituency.
Hapa Kiambu mwenyewe mngepata shilingi bilioni 10 zaidi. Yote iko kando. Lakini mwaka ujao itarudi tena.
Before he donated an X-ray machine worth 10 million shillings to Kigumo Hospital in Githongori constituency.
Tunataka kuhakikisha kwamba kila Mkenya kama ni mgonjwa ana pesa au hana pesa apate matibabu ambayo inatakikana.
Raila, who also attended a birthday party of Gideon Gashoki, a youth from the area, also promised to prioritize the interest of the youth if he forms the next government.
SMS aliandika mapema akaniambia mimi atakuwa na birthday. Anataka mimi niwe mgeni wa heshima kwa birthday yake.
And it is true, Baba can climb the mountain, and I can tell you, Baba, these vijanas got your back.
After the meetings, Raila embarked on a Meet the People tour in towns of Kibichoi, Githongori, and finalized at Ruiru town in Kiambu County. ODM leader Raila Odinga has continued with his charm offensive of the Mount Kenya region, promising to build on President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy when he exits office next year.
Mimi nilijenga hii Thika highway. Mimi vile nikajenga hii Northern bypass.
Wakati huu hatuna mpango ya kwenda nje ya serikali. Ama mnataka kuwa nje ya serikali? Tunataka ndani kabisa.
Kupitia kwako vijana walikutuma uambie rais atoe curfew. Na sisi tunasema asante kwa rais kwa kutoa curfew ndio vijana waweze kuendeleza kazi zao.
Ukasema mchunga msibebwe ufala. Na mimi nikaweka hapo kwa mtandao, ndipo tunasema jibebe tujenge taifa.
Raila Amolo Odinga ndiye atakuwa the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya.
This came as the Deputy President William Ruto also met another group from Kiambu County where he took a swipe at Raila, terming him a state project.
Our competitors, the project of the system, who believe in patronage and the trickle-down handout mentality, that is the contest the people of Kenya are faced with.
Ruto spoke when he hosted religious leaders, opinion shapers, and small-scale businessmen from Githurai at his current residence in Nairobi.
Kwa wale viongozi wote wanaania kiti ya president, mmoja peke yake ndiye anazungumzia mahasla.
If you want to copy Hustler Nation message, please find something that is somewhere closer to the truth.
The meeting came a day after the two shared a podium at Wangoru Stadium in Kirinyaga County, where they continued to jostle and look for support as the 2022 general polls beckon. Emmanuel To, KTN News, Kiambu County.
Intro is the subject that we're going to be discussing later on the show, but that was Raila Odinga's continued foray into Mount Kenya region, where he pitched camp in Kiambu and he campaigned for his 2022 presidential bid. And of course, we had the Deputy President also campaigning and meeting Kiambu leaders, and he has labeled Raila Odinga a state project. Now, Honorable Tandaza, when it comes to this, it's pretty curious because earlier on we had that promise of 10 for Uhuru Kenyatta and 10 for William Ruto. Wouldn't you also label that a possible state project? Why the flip when it's not now the DP being pushed by the president?
Well, Trix, I think this is coming out of I'm not sure whether it was a promise and therefore a broken promise, because in Kenya, especially when it comes to political promises or even MOUs, we have a history of them not being followed. This started way back from the NAC government, which came in with a landslide, with an MOU between the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki. Didn't work. came in to as late as our NASA coalition in the 2017 general election. There was an MOU. Indeed, it's not working. It can't work. So I'm not surprised from where I sit that even if someone had said kumi yangu kumi yako, I'm not sure whether it was kumi ya uongozi ama ni ile kumi kumi. Unajua kuna kumi kumi pia Kenya from the side. I'm not quite sure. But whatever the promise was, I think it was with our political experience, one should have known that normally we don't keep political promises or political MOUs. But having said that again, it would be to any politician's advantage to have the backing of the state, if the state was to back someone. But remember, the ultimate vote comes from the citizenry. The state would talk of the individuals who would be swaying or who would think they have the powers to sway the population or the ordinary voter. But from where I sit again, I cannot see that happen. Remember, in 2002, when the late President Moi wanted the current president to be the president, definitely had all the backing of the state. That was a state project.
For sure.
It was a government project. And by then, Moi held all the powers that be. But did Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta become the president? No. So, to me, the issue, this brings me to the issue of endorsements. I think this is a topic that we should be well aware of, that it normally doesn't work in Kenya.
Yes.
Whether it's going to work this time, it will be a situation of wait and see. But again, everybody, I think I will be looking at the Mount Kenya vote. It's very important because it's a vote that you cannot ignore. It is a vote that counts. You cannot compare it with other smaller tribes like us. Of course, we are going to vote, but of course, I think nobody really takes a lot of time to camp in Kwale or in Tana River. Yeah, one would rather make 3 trips in a week to central Kenya because that is where the vote is.
Yes,
and again, that's where the resources are. Tricks in campaigns, you are looking at 2 main things. 1, resources. 2, the numbers. So when one goes to central Kenya, you get those 2 in one basket. The resources are there, people are there who are quite resourced, and again, the numbers. And the president, the current president, coming from that area, then definitely carries a lot of weight if he is to endorse someone. But in conclusion, whether one is endorsed or not, I think the ultimate winner will come from the ordinary voter.
Absolutely. You have to win over the hearts and minds of the people. Yeah, and of course, well, it does have some weight, but of course, it is not conclusive that you would take it whether or not, when you have the backing of the state. Now, Professor Midamba, what do you make of this calling of Raila Odinga as a state project? And on the other hand, we have the leaders basically scrambling for the votes in Mount Kenya. How important is that as part of the electorate that is going to be very key in ensuring somebody, whoever the candidate is, gets the presidency?
Trick. The situation is, I have been part of the Barack Obama campaign when I was in America. And I took my son to the for a neighborhood campaign, house to house. And my son was 6 years old. And we knocked the door, and my son told the 2 old ladies, will you vote for my friend? And the ladies say, who's your friend? Of course, Barack Obama. And these are strict Republican ladies. They've been there in their 80s. They never voted for anybody else. And the other lady came, hugged my son, and said, now, a young man, since you are so handsome, we are going to vote for your candidate. But the lady brought a long list of all Barack Obama promises, and they checked one by one. And because they have done that, they were satisfied that Barack Obama is going to meet the need of the people at that current time. And yes, of course he did. So let's not take this kind of statement very seriously or be persuaded by any of this kind of statement, Kenya. They're political statements that most of the time don't mean anything. State sponsor or not state sponsor, the citizen of Kenya are the ones who are going to vote.
That is true. The citizens are the ones that are going to vote. Professor Kagwanja, what do you make of this back and forth between Raila and the Deputy President and their scrambling for the votes of Mount Kenya? What is going to be more effective? Winning their hearts over, telling them that I'm going to deliver for you, or is it the fact that one has the backing of the President?
I think we are supposed to take the branding of Raila as a state project as with a tongue in the cheek. Because I think Ruto was joking. He was not serious about it. Because he is the state. He's the Vice President of the Republic of Kenya, going by the title His Excellency, the Deputy President. By law, if the President want to have a rest for 2 or 3 days and want somebody to act, it is by law, it is him who would be acting. There are quite a number of people appointed by Deputy President William Ruto into the government on his behalf. So you understand your system because before we start, throwing mudslinging here and there about titles. So that's one. Two, I think everybody in this country knows that Raila Odinga is the leader of opposition by virtue of the number of seats he has in parliament. Only that our constitution does not allow him to go to parliament to take his seat as a leader of parliament. That was what BBI was about. Can we have the leader of parliament, the opposition parliament? What we are seeing is a stroke of genius on the side of Raila. Which was done by Tony Blair, it was done by Barack Obama and other kind of great campaigners of our times, that you can blur the line between the government and the opposition so that you kind of bring the country to what we call the vital center. The concept of vital center was introduced by J.F. Kennedy in order to ensure that you don't polarize a country. Raila could as well move to the extreme and talk about opposition. This government was doing this government was doing that. But now he has moved to the vital center. And that's why political temperatures are low. We have never had such a peaceful campaign where it is, nobody is basically feeling threatened by the politics of the day. But what is happening is, by just moving to the vital center and beginning to eat into the constituency of the Hasra nation, the Hasra nation is no longer at ease. So it has left its message, and instead of concentrating on selling its message, it is now selling Raila either as a project. And the branding of the rivals itself is the best indicator that you're losing ground. There is no better indicator that you're losing ground other than moving from your message and beginning to attack the personality. When you begin to attack personality, you are moving from politics of issues to the politics of mediocrity. And it is important that we begin, we harness our politics on this very, very consistent line of issues. That is what our democracy is all about. Obviously, you are harking back to the Moi era campaign against Uhuru Kenyatta, where we branded Uhuru Kenyatta as a project of the late Mzee Moi, and it sunk. But Uhuru did not lose because it was Moi's project. He lost because Moi at the time was unpopular because of the kind of system that had emerged under Kano. The big question is, if you say Raila Odinga is a state project, are you selling him or are you undermining him? I think it's the other way around, because Uhuru is very popular in Mount Kenya region. And the more it becomes clear to the people of the region that he is leaving, the more nostalgic we begin to come. We have already begun the nostalgia, if you saw in Kirinyaga. We are now beginning to feel like we are being orphaned. And people are going to begin embracing Moi. Uhuru Kenyatta. The same thing we did with Kibaki. Because Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were endorsed by Kibaki quietly, without a lot of noise. They were elected because people, oh, this is the best person to be elected because he has been endorsed. If Raila is endorsed by Uhuru Kenyatta, he's going to have it. So if I were Ruto, I would not say he's a state project. I would begin the scramble for Uhuru. That's a better strategy rather than isolate Uhuru and Raila on one hand and start calling Raila a project. I wish I was called a project myself. I would be president next day.
Okay. Now let's move on to another story that is making headlines on the front page of the Daily Nation. I'd like us to take a look at some of the prospects that we are having here for governors, for people outgoing governors, the governors in race to own 2022 parties. Now we're being told for those serving final terms in office, the reality of constitutional limits has set in and they must seek new relevance or risk fading into oblivion. Now, most of them are still brimming with youthful exuberance, the paper says, and the idea of an early retirement is not on their minds. And some of the governors that have been put on the front page of the Daily Nation include Mwangi wa Iria, Okoth Obado, Ndiritu Murithi, Kiraitu Murungi, Amason Kingi, Alfred Mutua. We have here Kivutha Kibwana, Charity Ngilu, Lee Kinyanjui, Peter Munya, Ali Roba, so many right here. I think there are around 12 of them. What do you make of this, Honorable Tandaza, and the assertion that they are brimming with youthful exuberance?
Well, Trix, I'm really surprised that once you become a politician, and for that matter, to be specific, a governor, and you are still youth, then you need to remain in the same arena. I don't think that should be the case. One person who believes that quite a number of them are professionals and they have all the youth, all the energy to serve this country in different capacities. Yes. If you are a lawyer, I don't think by being a governor for 10 years you really forget the law that you've been practicing, which you learned. But unfortunately, I think what is making our governors, the second-term governors, insist in remaining in the political field is the way they governed in those 10 years. To me, I think that is the elephant in the room. They think that they could have done quite a number of mistakes. They could have somehow they could be tainted in matters corruption and all this. And what a better place for a corrupt person to be than to be on the political arena, because then you are saying you have your people behind you. People will always come and say, we are being persecuted, even when it's you as a person. But somehow, as a politician, you have that gravitas to move, to take your tribes people, your tribesmen, women with you, which is quite unfortunate, of course. But I think that could be the motivation. Otherwise, in the corporate world, in fact, contracts are meant for 4 years, yes, renewable once, 8 years. After 8 years, as a serious executive, you should have been able to do all that what you would have wanted to do. And this country certainly is not lacking people who can even do better with time going by. Yeah. For them forming political parties, I think that is also not a very good strategy. It's coming too late into the day. I cannot see any of them actually forming a political party with the 2022 general election 9-10 months to the general election and actually making an impact. Remember, we have, if my count is right, we have 83 registered political parties in this country. They can form them and be 150, but of what difference, of what importance is it going to make, especially coming towards the 2022 general election?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Professor Midamba, it's all about political survival, especially for these governors. And what would the move be? What would be the right move be for them if they want to remain relevant in the political spheres?
Trick, I agree with the statement that Honorable Tangasa just made. When I came from United States in 2011, Kivutha Kibwana, at that time it was the PS in the president office, invited me to speak to the old provincial commissioners, district commissioners that were retiring. But one thing he said to me that was very clear is, Prof, if you want to make a difference in this country, then create the kind of classes and system at KCA University that will support the county, because this is the only way Kenya is going to grow and accelerate. Yes, I did. We created county management programs. We created all the way to master level to help those provincial commissioners and old administrators who are retiring, such that they can up their skills and then return to be very productive in the government. We train over 60% of the counties. I took them to Singapore, to South Korea, to South Africa, and all that, so that they can be better. Now, when you look at our constitution, the 2010 constitution, devolved government is the best thing that has ever happened to this country. And for a few of the governors that went in with very clear agenda and message, they have done very well. For instance, Kivutha Kibwana has been able to translate what used to be almost semi-arid county now into a productive county. Professor Nyang' Nyong'o is doing an excellent job in Kisumu, and all other selected governors. The rest are having problems with this major issue of corruption. And therefore, why would I re-elect a corrupt person to come back and loot our money, and then does not have a very clear relevancy in terms of what the county needs. The county needs better education. The county needs better infrastructure, the agricultural system. This is what is going to change this country and forever. And therefore, I agree with the honorable member of parliament that there is so much to be done in Kenya. You can become a chicken farmer and feed all of us. You can become advisor of one kind or another in order to be relevant and productive in the country, and don't necessarily have to be a governor. We need a governor who's disciplined, who's focused, who's resourceful, who's innovative, and who's going to make a difference in this country.
Right. Professor Kagwanja, though there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a career politician. I mean, if that's your passion, it is your passion, right?
Yeah, it is. But let me start by basically citing the experience of the Chinese and why China is rising as a superpower from a governance perspective. I gather from a professor friend of mine from China, I didn't know this until I listened to him, that in order to become part of what you'd call an executive in China, which is called the Politburo, you have to have governed 110 million people for 10 years. And then your experience is identified or noticed that you made a difference in the lives of the people that you governed. And that way, you have a ticket. But the ticket may not take you to Politburo because you have now to come to Beijing and begin to demonstrate your ability to rule from what experience in the grassroots. That is why it is very difficult to get a weak president in China. You'll never have that kind of a thing because meritocracy matters. What is the relevance of this? It is that the 2010 constitution gave Kenya the opportunity to try its leaders before they become leaders in Nairobi. And our future leaders, and you can take this to the bank, will be governors, senators. That's where our leaders are going to come. Very, very exceptionally from the top senior government officials, but very, very rarely. Very rarely also from maybe the clergy, because they have a platform throughout, maybe Jesse Jacksons of America and so on, but from what we have, when you are looking at meritocracy, you have to look at the governors. And that is a double-edged sword. Because if you are a governor and you did not perform well, you fall down the cracks. Nobody will be interested. If you are a governor and you performed very well, you catapult yourself to the heart of Nairobi, and you are the next natural candidate for the presidency or the deputy presidency. There is no doubt about that. So the moment we are in now is that the governors are trying to size out. And this is not something you talk about. It is something people can see. My friend Kivuda Kibwana has performed very, very well in Ukambani, Makueni. My friend Anyang' Nyong'o has performed extremely well. He performed in Nairobi before because he was essentially the author of Vision 2030 and the papers before. He's the brain behind it. He performed very well. He's performing very well in Kisumu. And you can go on and talk about the many other people who have performed very well. Now, but there are many, many more who have been caught in this labyrinth of, corruption, cheating, exaggerating things, giving achievements that are not there, claiming credit which cannot be demonstrated on the ground. That is part of politics. So it is unfortunate at this time to be a governor who did not perform. It is also extremely fortunate for a governor like Runyangapuo, I have to mention him here, who has transformed what used to be a dread for many Kenyans. Oh, I don't want to be posted in Pokot. I don't want, now it's going to Pokot is now no more. It's part of Kenya. It is a civilized part of Kenya. So what are we saying? Our future leaders will be governors, but also many of the 47 will fall between the cracks and fall away and disappear.
That is true, especially when the merit that you're talking about is lacking. Now, let's move on to another story that has made headlines this morning. The country is staring at an acute food shortage after the National Cereals and Produce Board told the Parliament Committee on Agriculture that its grain reserve stores are empty. The board is now seeking funding of 10.4 billion shillings to purchase grains. The irony is that this is coming just 2 months after Treasury CS Ukur Yatani assured the country that there is enough food in the reserves. We'll be discussing this after this break. Do stay tuned to Morning Express.